You're live there. Okay,
Wow.
but
So now it did it.
it's okay.
Well,
I just feel like it.
well, I don't know why it's.
What's the
It
difference
didn't.
between live and live stream?
Well, I didn't see what you did different between what you did different
Right.
with what you did to begin with.
Well, oh, I do. I took it off of live stream, which we were trying to get through, and I put it on video. And then it said live streaming, so now it's live streaming, but I don't know. But anyway, do you have any coffee left?
It says it's live. Oh, I guess I want to go on YouTube and see if I see it.
Well, that's what I'm doing.
So that one there, it was the you just remember
Very good.
because it didn't go on, but it went on. It's 12 months. It's what? No, 12 months. He's wrong.
Yeah, see, it's not actually real.
Right. So that was our test. It didn't look like and these are other
Mm. Like that's not, that's zero, and that's that, and that's, you know, this is the freedom of
these are all around. But it's not a
it's over there and it's in number. And walk around and talk. Oh, wow, I can hear myself.
yeah, your speaker is pretty good.
I wonder if we're getting feedback from that.
Well, what happened was, yeah, there's a microphone on here, right?
Not now, now it's okay.
Yeah, but when the speaker was on there, this microphone was going to pick up that speaker.
Gotcha. So I think there's 4 seconds. Delay.
That intrigues me. But it does take time. And that's a real measurement that mathematics people, mathematicians can do to figure out how many electrons got jarred so that information would go out to towers and then come back over here. And I don't think that I think that if you turned on 6 different computers, they'd all be running at different times too. Like, they're not all gonna be synced to the same time. Nothing can be synchronized really. In reality, and that's what Einstein said, is in reality, there's no time in between. There's nothing. You can't measure or observe anything that's simultaneous. Because it takes time for information to get to you.
I don't understand what you just point. Now, you're gonna be a,
You're gonna get so
civil
bad.
rep. That's, I'm gonna make it to the sun.
Oh, it records. It records while it does this.
I don't know. I could put a light on your face.
Well, I know I could put a light on my face. The poet. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Here I stand in the poet's graveyard. A lie for a lie, a truth for a truth. It should be more like an old auto junkyard. Auto juices and metals over time on the earth are washed into the water table. They resurface in seas, a forced rebirth. Deadly toxins, life killers, they're labeled. If the heirs of poets, the egos and rhymes, blew likewise into the cosmos, would damage be done, or wisdom be won, as from Sappho, the laureate of Lesbos? Ashes of her blow through our depths. In her many, in many her name strikes fear. We have not witnessed the times that she met, heavily veiled through man's many years. Poets ought to be left on top of the ground, to rust and decay as we please, to wither and dry, empty of sound, blown away by the wind or the sneeze. When a poet dies, it is not a surprise. Everyone knew or wished she would. We look in our whispers and pull out our lies, make her almost seem understood.
Well, that's really weird.
Why?
Well, you read that so
I
differently
read, I
than I
knew,
do.
I could tell I was reading differently, and I was thinking, should I try to read it the way Mary was? I'll try to read it the way Mary was. It's more rhythmical.
It's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Here I stand in the forest grave. A lie for a lie, a truth for a truth. It should be more like an old auto junkyard here. I know it better to say it myself rather than read it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to try it.
It's fun. I want you to read some more.
We want to hear.
Oh, actually, what the heck?
What? Well, that.
I've been wanting to do this.
I would face that way.
Yeah? Okay.
Uh, just because what light on the road is over here, so your whole head looks like, if you go over this way back, your head disappears.
Does that work? This is a paper I wrote in like, I don't know, 1991. Sociological Perspectives on the Structure of Social Order. Sociologists who hope to explain the development of a world social order according to the function of the structures in the world may conclude that social order is maintained by a dynamic tension between the nation states. There is little evidence for the desired equilibrium that the structure of treaties, contracts, and international organizations would ideally provide. Also, a great deal of statistical data could be collected which would indicate that the existing international structures are in serious dysfunction. Biologists report thousands of varieties of plant and animal species become extinct annually. Meteorologists measure the holes in the ozone layer of the planet's atmosphere, and the World Monetary Fund is stuck in unworkable policies with unrecoverable loans and inflationary deficits. This was from 1991. It hasn't changed much either. Sociologists studying the interaction of transnational peoples with multinational organizations may make some important observations about trends of behavior in various groups of people. For one thing, almost everyone living in the industrial world who doesn't have a significant personal stake in the scientific, military, industrial order is undergoing incredible value transformation involving such basic concept definitions as what is security, education, wealth, justice, truth, etc. The largest group of free market consumers in North America and Western Europe is undergoing a dramatic shift. The motivation for this shift in social values is nothing less than the desire for survival. M. L. Honda observes in a paradigm shift which took place about 500 years ago from a geocentric view of the world to a scientific view. Honda neglected to look far enough in the past, however, to recognize the root problem with the current paradigm. Truthfully, the development of the scientific view was not a complete paradigm shift, but the evolutionary development of a paradigm formed more than 4,000 years ago. At that time, a shift took place which actually split nature into two opposing forces, material versus spirit. End of the first page.
Paradigm.
Paradigm? Paradigm! What did I say? Paradigm? Before patriarchy, a paradigm, is that it? Existed which was holistic. The holistic view envisioned nature as spirit and material together, being as one, and completely inseparable. Also, because spirit and material are one, a sacred quality is given to nature. Nature is holy. If we reach back to pre-patriarchal time in forming a paradigm for a peaceful world order, we discover the central truth upon which all other truths rest, and all else in creation rests. Sacred is nature is sacred. I mean, this is a outline for a philosophy of the way civilization is already organized. I'm not saying that this is the way it should be or what I want, but my observation.
No, but it's interesting because your dialogue about Buddy earlier today was you said you didn't know how to explain what you just explained to him, Peterson.
Peterson, yeah. Yeah, this actually, I want to address this to Mr. Peterson.
The story that Mary Daly tells about the origin of competition, about how a drought caused capitalism, private property, is a very important story because it taught me that previous to private property, which you were saying then too, there was no well, why would you compete? You would only just care for each other. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Anyway, this is the first part of this is sort of a preface to an outline, which seems odd, but the whole thing was an outline for a what do you call those things? Thesis. Yeah. The whole thing, the whole document here is an outline for a thesis, which I prepared in 1991. Which I never wrote the thesis, but still, I was working on writing on this topic a couple months ago, and almost every single point is reflected in the present paper, as in this old paper. But there are changes of my point of view because that's different information or different, even change my mind on things.
Yeah.
When we use the paradigm of a holistic creation for the construction of a social structures for a world social order, the whole language changes radically at the root. Sociology can't explain the development of a world social order. The development of a world social order explains sociology. The peace movement is not a movement. Peace is a natural and ordinary state of things. Now that was a value I held that is arguable. But anyway, the work of a peace paradigm is already done for us. It is a part of us. We only need to respond to its urgings within us. We may struggle with the language because the social conditioning of the patriarchal paradigm has bound our consciousness considerably. I will use the words, the creation, instead of the words, the world. I will use the words, the story, instead of the words, history. I will also no longer use the word paradigm. What we really mean is the pattern for things, or the way we look at reality. So I will just say the vision of reality. These changes are an important discipline for living in the vision of peace. History is the story of the patriarchy, and now we are about to transcend the patriarchy. So even in this paper, I forget to use the correct language at times. So I want to try to remember myself that the vision of reality, instead of using the word paradigm, I should be saying that our vision of reality. In his book, Manifesto for a Peaceful World Order, M.L. Honda observes two worldviews on social order. The Marxist view of class conflict resolving itself by a change in the means of production of goods and the elimination of private property, and the capitalist view whereby ever-expanding markets and wealth embrace ever more people until the elimination of want or need for all is achieved. Although they disagree on the structures of organization for social order, they both originate from the scientific spirit split from material view of reality. The set of values which form the current vision cause the nation states to be organized in much the same way and act the same, yet be dangerously competitive over issues of markets, territory, and sphere of influence. The difference between nation states is theological and ideological only. The vision of social order shared by the two dominant ideologies address the relationship between humanity and nature in modern scientific terms. It applies science to the making of tools for the measurement and manipulation of nature. Science is based on a set of principles about nature. 1. All of nature is material. 2. Material acts according to universal physical laws. 3. Material can be objectively observed. 4. The observation of material by the scientific method can identify the laws which govern the way nature behaves. 5. Experiments can be designed, constructed, and performed to demonstrate the law. 6. Experiments can be duplicated with the same result. Previous to patriarchy, people knew chemistry, mathematics, biology, and other disciplines commonly known as science. People selected edible and medicinal plants. They cooked, made pottery, and refined metals. People made tools and studied nature before there was a scientific method. But with the emergence of the modern scientific method came a change in the way people studied nature. The social value for study became measured by its use of the scientific method. It is exceedingly important to keep in mind that human beings created the scientific method. Also, we must understand the effect the patriarchy has on the scientific view. Francis Bacon developed the beginnings of the scientific method. His desire was to become an engine of thought. He designed the machinery of the scientific method to enable men to interrogate nature with power. Bacon wrote, I am come in very truth, leading to you nature with all her children to bind her to your service and make her your slave. So again, this is going back to the beginning of the paradigm, from the ancient paradigm that nature and spirit is one, so nature is sacred, to the patriarchal paradigm that nature and spirit are separated into material and anyway, I want to go over that again, because this is our modern paradigm is a patriarchal scientific military paradigm. And I want to compare it to the possibilities for other paradigms. And I'm proposing that before the patriarchal scientific industrial militaristic paradigm, there actually was a holistic paradigm. And I'm trying to outline the characteristics of a paradigm that would view nature as a whole. Previous to the patriarchy, people knew chemistry, mathematics, biology, and other disciplines commonly known as science. People selected edible and medicinal plants. They cooked, made pottery, and they refined metals. People made tools and studied nature before there was a scientific method. But with the emergence of the scientific method came a change in the way people studied nature. The social value for study became measured by its use of the scientific method. And again, I should always be saying modern scientific method, because even the scientific method, the claim to the name of science, there's the ancient method and then there's the modern method. Then they are distinctly different. They're different approaches to how to study nature, actually. So even science agrees that there was a method preceding the modern method of study, a valid method of inquiry. And you know, that needs to be part of the modern debate, and it's not. In the modern philosophical and political science debates of the world, modernist, postmodernist, Marxist, what's not considered is that they're I forget where I was going with that. At any rate, what? Well, I don't know. I was kind of I was thinking I'd read the whole paper. I don't. Is anybody watching it? Oh. Well, anyway, I don't want to start debating with the paper and analyzing it too much, because I have a modern paper as well, or a more previous. Anyway, oh yeah. So the valid prospect that before the modern method of inquiry and study, there were other valid methods of study which are acknowledged. So, and then of course, I want to restate what Bacon had to say, because I find it extremely important in identifying actually almost a personality, a psychiatric personality for the modern paradigm. Francis Bacon developed the beginning of the modern scientific method. His desire was to come to an engine of thought He designed the machinery of the modern scientific method to enable men to interrogate nature with power. Bacon wrote, I am come in very truth, leading to you nature with all her children, to bind her to your service and make her your slave. So that's debate. That's really the argument. Is that the view that nature is can be manipulated and should be manipulated to our service. I guess that's the point of the paradigm. The modern paradigm says it's okay to manipulate nature to the desires of human beings, specifically to desire of men, because it is a patriarchal idea. In this paper, I will use the term modern science in referring to scientific study after the formation of the scientific method for exploration and experimentation. With the foundation of the patriarchy, spirit was split from material and placed in the unreachable heaven. And so the justification for the manipulation and exploitation of material became a firmly established value. Okay, so that's what I was arguing with before I read the paragraph, because I didn't know that was the explanation was actually forthcoming in my own paper. Okay, so that's the argument. So the whole argument that I have, my whole life has been this argument that view of the split of it's the justification. It's a justification for a human behavior that's destructive to its own interests, in my mind. So, and now I'm going to list values. I think here, I'm not clear. Like I said, it is an outline of sorts. The current science only studies half of nature. Okay. With the foundation of the patriarchy, spirit was split from material and placed in the unreachable heaven, and so the justification for the manipulation and exploitation of material became firmly established. The current science only studies half of nature. The method of experimentation and study of nature created a value for being able to exercise precise control over any process to ensure the same result every time. Control over any process requires centralization. Honda indicates that centralized materialism is consistent in both the current worldviews on social order because competition between the nation states over centralized control of material is so fierce. Militarism has become the greatest economic endeavor in the world. Wars, the prospect of world war, and the present preparation for war affects the balance of the material and life forms in nature which sustain life. The modern scientific patriarchy forms the dominant set of values currently maintained by all the factions competing for power over world resources. So in some ways, if some of you are familiar with what do they call it, Agenda 21? Agenda 21 was actually written in the 90s, about the same time that I wrote this paper. And in some ways, the Agenda 21 might be an effort to address some of these challenges. Okay, spiritual nature of world peace. So now I'm going to describe the characteristics of a paradigm for peace. We're unable to define new values within the terms of the patriarchy. Spirituality, truth, world peace, justice, almost any word one might use doesn't make sense. Further, none of these words are scientific. We have to step outside the frame of reference provided by the current dominant worldview. Every concept has at least two words in the English language which occupy our understanding for the concept. The language for a peaceful world order begins with the word peace or the word harmony. So I'm outlining the one of the biggest difficulties with designing a paradigm for peace is that we're stuck in this patriarchal scientific militaristic language. And so I have to define the language that I would use in the thesis that I haven't written yet. So for my purposes, peace equals harmony. That's those are two words that have the same uh, meaning, the same purpose. Handa explores two aspects of peace. One, inner peace, which is personal peace in the person's understanding of God or purpose in one's life. And two, social peace, nonviolence or cooperation in a person's relationship to others, and nonviolence in the economic and political structures of society. So that's the way Honda describes peace. And harmony applies to the relationship between two or more forces, a natural force and a social force, or social structures and individuals, or interpersonal relationships. A key to the meaning of harmony can be observed in the ecosystem. Harmony is balance between forces or parties. Harmony is the expression of cooperation. So that's the beginning of um, my understanding of what peace is. Peace is harmony. Harmony is a balance, and it's an expression of cooperation. And I think that it's a natural phenomenon as well. I think it's within humanity's ability to design a peaceful civilization. The goal of Emil Honda's Peace Manifesto is human emancipation from violence. Emancipation from the violence of the nation state, the violence of economic structures, and the violence of interpersonal nature. And that's particularly the violence between men and women and men and children. The Peace Manifesto is found on two principles. Truth is the first principle, and nonviolence is the second principle. From the current scientific view, truth is a physical law demonstrated in an experiment. Nonviolence is meaningless because science is objective and nature has no personality. Science uses the word value in reference to units of measure only. So science is valueless when values are subjective. The reduction of the word value to units of measure figures greatly in what Honda calls the civilizational crisis, the highest stage of the development for a violent world social order. So that we do, and he was 70 years before me, or at least, and he's observing a civilizational crisis and defining a civilizational crisis as the highest state of development for a violent world social order. So we've been in this civilizational crisis my whole lifetime already, but it doesn't mean that we can't deal with it. What's important is that people need to talk about is that there's a civilizational crisis. It's not part of the discussion in most cases. The highest stage of development for a violent world social order. Okay. When I printed this, I should have double spaced because then I have difficulty reading. Also, I learned that a shorter line length is easier to find the beginning of the next line. It is the highest stage. It is the highest stage because it can continue no further. The capabilities for violence are more than enough to destroy all life as we know it. The expression of the ultimate total violence would destroy us all. So we need a new definition for the words truth and nonviolence. I would consider the words vision and cooperation to be substitutes to hold the same position at the foundation for peace. So truth equals vision and nonviolence equals cooperation. I'm just, I'm just trying to identify words that can that exist in our already exist in our industrial patriarchal scientific militaristic paradigm. So the word truth and nonviolence in our existing paradigm, they're meaningless. People argue over those words. But I'm saying the word truth means vision. Everyone has a more clear understanding of the word vision, and in a very personal way. Vision is the way we can see things, and also it can be in an alternative sense, an extraordinary vision that because we, being not scientific, not bound to science, we can assume or presume that there are you know, extraordinary um, um, there's extraordinary aspects to nature that aren't measurable. Because remember, the scientific method only studies half of nature. So the word vision allows for the fact that there's more to nature than what we can actually even see. So, and nonviolence cooperation. That's what nonviolence is. I mean, you can't say a volcano is not violent because it's violent if you happen to be standing in the path of the lava. But it the volcano is in a state of cooperation with the rest of the planet. So the word cooperation is valuable for us in the modern paradigm to understand what we mean when we say we want to live in a nonviolent world. Nonviolent means cooperation. In a world where there's cooperation, we have an understanding. Oh, well, in a world of cooperation, you don't send in the troops, you send in the doctors. You know, like that's the way a world of cooperation works. So, that which is real outside the perception of a given set of values is truth. And the vision is the way we look at reality. Because truth is outside our experience, the understanding of truth requires vision. Vision is a tool we use to validate experience, which occurs outside the structure of scientific view. People must rely on vision to make determinations about what is true about nature or what people's true needs are. For a peaceful world order, our understanding of nature must shift from that of material demonstrating various physical states to a relationship of all life. The word relationship is also a subjective word. In our vision of reality, we observe that the relationships between life forms are in balance or in cooperation with the material forms of nature. Because the life forms require materials such as water, earth, and air for their success, the material cannot be separate from life. So it is the balance or cooperative relationship between life and material that form our understanding of nature. Now we're starting to measure more than just half of nature because we're understanding that life is not separate from material. Life is in relationship, a cooperative relationship with material. And we're living beings, but there's a lot of living beings, and it's not just about humans. Cooperation is not just about humans. Humans could learn a lot about cooperation if they would study the rest of nature. Okay. Because life forms require materials, so it is the balance of cooperation, cooperative relationship that form our understanding of nature. When we make that shift in our perception, we derive one truth from which to form a peaceful world order. So I'm trying to define these truths for that
paradigm of peaceful world order. And so one of the truths that this argument de- determines is nature is all life. So again, now I'm coming to the oneness because see they're the ones the modern scientists view even modern in the ancient scientific view had already divided nature into spirit and material. But if you come to this argument and agree that there is possibility and uh, a valid argument for uh, a view of a view of some continuity where life life and material are in cooperation, then the truth that comes out of that argument is nature is all life. So it this if you want, I want to take a break because I'm going to leave it with that. Nature is all life. That's the first discovery of this argument, and it, you know, well, I'll continue the paper tomorrow, um, because I think that reflecting on the difference between the statement "nature is all life" and the statement that Bacon made, and see, even though people don't say, well, I don't agree with Bacon. I wouldn't have said that. But the whole world view has come from that statement, so we have this world of conflict. So I want you to consider how do you compete with the current world view, the paradigm of violent competition equals success. Violent competition equals success. I mean, that's the paradigm of the crazy street kids out here who are shooting up each other. No, let's start with a different view and see what ideas come to mind. Nature is all life. Okay, so I'll come back to this tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anyway, turn it off. Just close whatever. Shut down the computer.
Was that a bit too much?